Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Daily Cannon Tactics Board. Stephen Bradley here, once again, to go over Arsenal's rather disappointing 1-0 defeat to Southampton in the FA Cup fourth round on Saturday lunchtime afternoon. And it's pretty much the answer to the question, why do Arsenal need Martin Odegaard? Because this game shows that, unlike the Crystal Palace game, where it was the lack of Kieran Tierney that was so glaring in Arsenal's lack of creativity and lack of ability to cause the defence problems. In this game, it was the midfield as a whole not functioning at all until the introduction of Thomas Partey after an hour, and missing Smith Rowe and missing Bukayo Saka meant that Arsenal had no way of maintaining an attacking front, an attacking move, any attacking threat until very late on. And even then, with 15 minutes to go, that petered away as well. We'll go through that. But just on the Odegaard mention, we'll bring up the tactics board. What happened in this game is very illustrative of the problems that Arsenal have right now and the problems that this Southampton team can cause anyone. I think it's very safe to say that Ralph Hasenhüttl will not be at Southampton much longer. It's mad that a year ago they were losing 9-0 to Leicester. I know Leicester had 10 shots on goal and scored 9, but they scored 9. And the fact that a year later, Southampton are now perhaps the best coached team in England, and I don't make that claim lightly, but you look at the way clubs like Chelsea have found it so hard to integrate all that attacking talent that they've brought in over the summer into a cohesive unit. You're seeing how Arsenal are struggling. You're seeing how Tottenham are trying to defend deep and just knock balls long to Kane and Son, and how that doesn't work when they go a goal up because they have no plan B. And, even Liverpool haven't scored in a month. First time they've gone 4 games without scoring in like 15 years. And you're seeing teams, because of COVID, because they're not able to get players into a room for more than 15 minutes at a time, getting tactics drilled into them, getting patterns and getting formations. You can do a lot of it, obviously, out on the training pitch, but you need to give them information as well. You can't do that outside. So they need to be given information, and it's not just how intense Southampton's pressing system is. It's the variety of schemes that they use. It's almost like watching an American football defense, where they're trying to confuse the man with the ball, the quarterback, into making a mistake by disguising where the pressure is coming from. Whether it's going to be, are they going to try and hit him from this side, or are they going to try and hit him from this side? And you disguise the people in front of you to show which way they're coming from. And Southampton did this to such great effect that for at least all of the first half, and until Partey came on halfway through the second half, Arsenal had no compunction to get the ball out of their defence and out of their midfield. And it was a credit to Southampton, but it was also a testament to Arsenal's limitation with this side, with this team picked, with this formation and this group of players. Because as I'll show, Arsenal will continually put in a position where they didn't want to be in. They will continually put, given scenarios where they had to pass the ball to players either didn't want it or weren't moving for it. And as a result, attacks broke down and they just invited pressure them over and over again. And like I said, we'll go over it here. So I'll just drag down this for you a little bit. There we go. So anytime Arsenal had the ball, especially from goal kicks, what would happen is this. So obviously, Gabriel would go here, Holding would go here, Bellerin there, Cedric there, Xhaka would come deep for it, and then he would come deep for it. And what it does, it invites a press. It says, look, we're going to start out from the back, we're going to try and beat your press. Problem is, Southampton are, now that Liverpool are starting to not fall off a cliff, but definitely fall off an edge in terms of their ability to press. Maybe that's just because they've been doing it for 4 years and the batteries are finally starting to run out. But what Southampton do brilliantly is they just say, look, you're not getting any space. We're pushing up. To the extent that their backline is very, very high, Liverpool-esque. And because of offside, Arsenal's back Arsenal's front four have to do the same. And what happens is it just compresses everything. Now they wanted that. They were there because Tottenham caught them for 6 at the start of the season because their back line was here. And what Kane did basically, this was Son. Son would stand here on the halfway line. You can't be offside. Kane would get the ball. Pew! Son would go through and score. It was ridiculous how easy he did it. So since then, Southampton, they've just taken 5 steps back and gone here. But what it means is, as you can see, there's no space. They compress the pitch. They make you play the ball in your own half. Now again, Arsenal have invited this. Arsenal have said, yeah, we're going to start from here. We're going to get the ball out wide. We're going to get it into one of our centre mids. And they're going to find either Willian as the number 10 or the fullback. And we're going to invite the press, and then we're going to break it. And it's going to go to Martinelli or Pepe, and then we're 4-on-3. And if Willian gets involved, we're 4-on-4. That's the plan. It's how you beat presses. It's how, go back and watch the last time before the Burnley result, Liverpool lost at home to Crystal Palace, to Sam Allardyce's Crystal Palace, where they did exactly that. They passed their way through the press, they beat it, and they scored a wonderful goal. What Arsenal fell into, though, was a routine of, I don't want to say laziness because it's the wrong word, but a lack of accountability. Because what was happening was, they get the ball here. Walcott would immediately press on Cedric. Ward-Prowse would fill that gap. Diallo would fill that gap there. And then Ings would go forward. As soon as the ball would go from one centre-back, and it'd be like this at the start. So if the ball goes to Gabriel, 3 red shirts would crowd him. And it's up to him to get it to Cedric or to Xhaka. If he gets it to Cedric, Ward-Prowse would close in and let him have Xhaka. Adams would go in here. And what they're trying to do is 2 things. One, if it gets to Xhaka, which it most often did, they would actually retreat a little bit. Just a little bit. Just so the ball, if he wants to try and pass it to Elneny, fine. If he wants to try and pass it to Gabriel, fine. If he wants to pass it to Holding, fine. But they're making sure it doesn't get to Willian, as long as Willian stays there. As long as he stays there, they're not really too fussed. Adams, Che Adams can, cover the gaps here. Ings can get back, or if Adams and Ings wants to do that, Ward-Prowse can go in there. Diallo can come back. They have abilities to cover routes in different zones of the pitch. They're all right. What they're trying to do, desperately, is make Xhaka pass the ball to Elneny. Because if Xhaka is given, enough time and enough space on the ball, he can find the ball over the top to Martinelli. He can find the ball over the top to Nketiah. And even, at a stretch, he can find the ball over the top of Diallo to Pepe. He can do that if given time. So they would just sit back and they go, you're not getting the ball over. We're just going to sit back. And then, once the ball would go from Xhaka to Elneny, they'd pounce. And it'd be like this. And then Elneny's in trouble. So he has to give it to Bellerin, he has to give it to Holding, and Arsenal have to recycle it and start from scratch. Go back to Gabriel, to Xhaka, he'd look around, he'd see Willian there, wouldn't pass it to him because Willian's not moving because he's always covered by Adams and Ward-Prowse. It would go to Elneny, and then Elneny would be swarmed, and then it would start again. And this kept going and going and going. And it got to the point where Xhaka, you can tell the type of game Xhaka is going to have within the first 10 minutes if he does one of 2 things. If he starts running with the ball or starts making attempts to get into space to show for the ball, he's going to have a good game. Because anytime Arsenal would move these lads back a bit, anytime Cedric, or when it's Tierney, Gabriel would go here, Holding would go here, Xhaka would immediately show here. On the left wing, filling in so that the left back could bomb on, could get up here. He didn't do that in today's game. What he did was that he gave out to everyone for not running when he had the ball. He would do his usual, go there, you go there, while staying still himself. And what it meant was Southampton were able to go, right, as soon as Xhaka gets the ball, we stay back, and as soon as he passes it, we pounce. Because we know he's not moving. We know he's going to be in and around there. So we can have some sense of safety net in knowing that he's not going to try and burst forward. He's not going to try and go around. He's just going to make sure he's there to get the ball. So what it meant was that Diallo could gamble, Ings could gamble, Che Adams could gamble. Because they knew that Xhaka wasn't going to move from there. We'll put Willian back there. They knew that Xhaka wasn't going to move from there. You can see by his heat map. He gets around a little bit, but that's where he has the majority of the ball. Right there. And as a result, because of this is okay if Willian moves. Because let's just say Xhaka is left on his own. We'll put Adams and Ings back there, Gianna there. Gianna knows that he can do this because he knows that Willian isn't going to move from there. But if Willian goes here, now Diallo has to follow. He just has to respect the fact that there's a run in there. There has to, just as a threat, which now means Ings and Armstrong can't both press Elneny, because if the ball gets to Elneny and he is able to beat the press, suddenly Bellerin and Pepe have a 2-on-1 on Bertrand. So if Willian moves, or even if he goes there, Diallo goes there, then the defence does that. Now Martinelli has space. The thing is that the way you beat a press is that you move it yourself. You have to be the aggressor. You have to put your players into positions where you know they won't be pressed. That you know that you can get the ball, and that the midfield and the attackers aren't going to immediately charge upon you because they know they're getting dragged out of positions themselves. You have it's brave because it means passing the ball a lot in and around the midfield, in, frankly, the middle of fire. But you're a Premier League footballer. You're supposed to be able to pass the ball with 1 touch or 2 touches max. If you do that, you can beat presses comfortably, get out, and then start these 4-on-5s very comfortably. And it's what Arsenal were able to do in the second half. But for the first half, this was not having an effect at all because Xhaka wouldn't move and Willian doesn't move. Willian is not a 10. It was a gamble, I suppose. Like if you were to assume that Pepe was going to be the first choice right winger at the start of the season and that he needed experienced cover. Yes, it's expensive experienced cover. 100 grand a week for 3 years. But it was free. Like if Willian was, at least contributing something towards the attacking side of the ball and chipping in with 3 or 4 goals and 4 or 5 assists over the 20 games that he's played, then you could say, well, okay, it's an expensive contract, but he cost us nothing. There would be a lot more allowance made for the fact that there was no transfer fee involved, as opposed to the fact that it's a 3-year contract. But Willian in 20 games for Arsenal has had 2 shots on target. Like, he is just not an attacking outlet for Arsenal right now. He is not a threat to the opposition, and the opposition do not recognise him as a threat. And because he's not willing to run around that much, because he's not willing to make those runs to draw defenders out of position or decoy runs or any of the sort, and then when he does get the ball, he slows it down to the extent where he almost waits for passes to go around him. He's like, right, okay, where's Martinelli? He's gonna go. Now you can't take that much time. The game is going far too quick these days to have someone play at that slow a pace. It's half the reason why Ozil is now on a plane to Istanbul. He wasn't able to keep up with the pace of the game, and it appears as if neither can Willian. And if the plan was to play him as an auxiliary in number 10 to fill in that role from time to time, it has failed miserably. And there is no better example of how it failed miserably than for the goal that Arsenal conceded, because it was an Arsenal throw. So Bellerin is here, and Lenny shows for it. Arsenal are... Give me holding. There we go. Arsenal are deep in their own half, throwing the ball, goes to Elneny, and as soon as Elneny gets the ball, Diallo does this, and Armstrong does this, and Ings does this. And they go right. And he is penned in here. And instead of just hoofing it, like he should have when he's got 3 red shirts around him, he decides he's going to try and beat both Armstrong and Diallo with a skill move and try and find the ball to Bellerin and start an attack. And it is this very bad decision making. I nearly swore there. But it's that decision making that lets him down, because obviously it didn't work. Diallo gets the ball, quick ball to Armstrong, Armstrong to Ings. Ings tries to find the ball to Adams, who is running in there, completely miskicks it. Ward-Prowse picks it up here. Walcott bombed into the box. The whole Southampton team is pushed up to the extent that Walker Peters is here. He puts a cross in, and it's deflected in off Gabriel, and it's 1-0. And this was the pattern of the game as a whole. Southampton just threw numbers at Arsenal again and again, and Arsenal had no idea where the pressure was coming from. They had no idea what to expect when the pressure came, and they had very little compunction to get rid of the ball quickly once they were under pressure. And again, Southampton were able to cause this confusion quite cleverly by the way they pressured Xhaka. Like that, sometimes they would just push with 4-4-2. They would be, defense would be here. Walcott would push up on Cedric. Armstrong would push up on Bellerin. Diallo would push up on Prowse there, and Prowse on Willian, and they would make sure that anytime Xhaka got the ball, Walcott closes in, Ward-Prowse closes in, Adam closes in, just to force Xhaka to pass it somewhere. They didn't completely press him because they wanted him to get rid of the ball, but they didn't give him any routes out. Then, as soon as the ball got to Elneny, this happened. There was 3 on him. It would get to Bellerin. They would continue to press. It would go to Holding. They would continue to press. But the thing about pressing is that the good teams do it well once. The great teams, the way Liverpool do it, and the way this Southampton team is doing it, is, like I mentioned at the start of the video, they disguise the coverage. Because sometimes Xhaka was expecting Walcott, Ward-Prowse and Adams to be on his back. Sometimes Armstrong stepped back and Diallo went in, and Ings went this way. And then Ward-Prowse would step back, and it would be Diallo and Walcott. And now, instead of seeing the pass there to Martinelli or to Willian, now Xhaka is seeing the pass to Pepe. And he's like, well, I can't try that because Armstrong probably has this covered as well. So instead of thinking that Ward-Prowse is there, and when players are playing, they say you got to have a picture of the pitch in your head, that you got to try and imagine where the players are. Sometimes Ward-Prowse is here, sometimes he's here. Sometimes Diallo is there, sometimes he's there. Sometimes Walcott's there, sometimes he's dropped back. Sometimes Armstrong's there, sometimes he's dropped back and Walcott's come in. So occasionally, they could be attacking, they could be pressing with 6. Sometimes Diallo would come in here, Ward-Prowse would go a lot more central, and they'd attack like this. Sometimes it would be Ward-Prowse that would go back, and Diallo would come in, and Ings would come back, and Armstrong would come. They could go at you 4-4-2, they could go at you 4-3-3, they could go at you 4-1-3-2. You always knew that there was going to be 3 or 4 players on you, but you couldn't be sure of where you had to pass the ball first time next, because you weren't able to identify which 4 players it were that were around you. So as a result, Arsenal, all they could do was take the safe option again and again and again, and that meant going backwards. And the more they went backwards, the more it invited the Southampton players onto them. And as a result, for the first half, Arsenal just were like this. They were stuck. It was like in chess, it was zugzwang. They just couldn't get out. They had no way of getting out the ball because their midfield was not able to get the ball around this red swarm, basically. So, what happened? Well, after 15 minutes of the exact same thing happening again and again and again, Arsenal called on the cavalry. A party was brought on for Elneny, and Saka was brought on for Martinelli, who 18 touches in 57 minutes should say it all, really. I mean, he was getting into the game, but, he was getting the game here. He had one good shot from a well worked free kick, but that was it. Apart from that, Kyle Walker-Peters was kicking him into row Z every time, and he just couldn't get the ball. What changed? Well, this changed. Partey was playing because you know how I was saying Southampton every time Elneny got the ball, they would immediately stand off. They wouldn't stand off. They would immediately pounce on Elneny because they knew full well he couldn't beat them with the press. Well, as soon as Partey got the ball, they did the exact opposite. As soon as Partey got the ball, they went boof. They went back. They went back and they went back and they went back and they went, uh-oh. Because what they were afraid of was doing this, pushing forward, getting like this, and covering everything off, and then Ward-Prowse and Diallo going there. What they were afraid, because they know that Xhaka can make that ball, and they knew that Saka and now Willian and Pepe were now being forced basically by the manager to swap positions, which means that they were running all over the place. Sometimes Pepe would be left wing and Saka would be on the right. Sometimes Willian would be on the left wing and Pepe would be playing through the middle. And then Saka and Pepe would switch. So as a result, these four, and Nketiah was finally doing what he was supposed to be doing, and that is actually making runs instead of just, having a chat and a picnic with Bednarak and Stevens for the first half. What this encouraged was that Ward-Prowse and Diallo now actually had to act like midfielders instead of centre forwards, and actually had to mark runs, which meant that Southampton couldn't press with 6 anymore. They could only press with 4. And if you press these 4, Xhaka can find a pass to Saka, and he can find a pass to Willian. But Partey can also find a pass to Pepe and to Saka and to Nketiah occasionally. But what Partey can do is Partey can also beat the press just by running past you with the ball. And that's the danger, because Southampton's big advantage when they press is they press with numbers, but they're able to recover in time. If Partey beats you off the ball just through his dribbling ability, you don't have that freedom anymore, because Saka gets past Ings, it's now 6-on-5. If Willian's cutting in and Cedric is committed and Bellerin has committed, suddenly the numbers game turns against you. And that's always in the back of your head. And when you're pressing, you have to be fully committed. You can't do it half-arsed. You can't do it. Remember when Arsenal first tried to bring in their own pressing system in 2016? When it was Alexis Sanchez, who was in the pomp of his Arsenal career, was basically running around the place trying to win games by himself, and Arsenal goes, okay, fine, we're going to start pressing teams a lot more. You're the centre forward at the time. You lead the charge. And it was basically, if you imagine Arsenal playing, in blue and pink here, this would be Alexis Sanchez, and Alexis Sanchez would literally put his hand up and go, right, okay, lads, we're going to press now. And he'd look behind him and he'd have Ozil and just looking around him, just jogging up, going, okay, let's try. And it never worked. It never worked in a million years, because Arsenal weren't committed to it. Southampton do commit to it. But when you have players of the calibre of Partey who can beat the press in multiple ways, you can't attack them in multiple ways. And as a result, because the press was gone, because Southampton's ability to push Arsenal back was gone, Arsenal were free. Arsenal, it was almost like they could breathe again. And they started creating a couple of chances. Pepe, look, I'm not Pepe's biggest fan at all, but he had a decent game in this regard. In that any time he got the ball, he looked, I won't say every time he got the ball, but most times he got the ball, he did beat his man and pass the ball off to another player, and that's what his job is supposed to do. My biggest criticism of it is he gets the ball here, he tries to beat Bertrand, then once he beats Bertrand, he tries to beat Bertrand again, and once he beats Bertrand the second time, he tries to beat him a third time, and then it's, by that time Stevens and Diallo have caught him, and he's in a hole. What Pepe was doing in this game, he was beating Bertrand and then just giving the ball to a Saka or a Willian or a Nketiah or a Partey, especially in the second half. And he was linking up play quite well. And yes, the free kick he had from here was an abomination of a free kick, but it's a player lacking in confidence. You can see how there is a talented player there. It's just a case of how do you fit him in a system where the likes of Saka is playing so well from this spot because he's so much more of a threat going through the channels and off the ball than Pepe is. As good on the ball talent Pepe is, off the ball he offers nothing. He doesn't run in behind. He doesn't, try to make decoy runs to take defenders out of the way. If he's out of the play and he's not involved in the build up, he will stay right there and wait. And it was only the fact that during the second half he had to move from here when Arsenal had the ball because Saka was here and Willian was here, and he was being told by the manager, look, you have to go over here. And as a result, he was getting more involved with the ball, but only because he was having to swap positions with other players. If it was up to him, he'd just stay there. And it's just not a good fit for an Arsenal side that, as was shown in the first half, if no one moves ahead of them, no one moves ahead of Xhaka and Partey, or Xhaka and Elliott was, you can do nothing. It doesn't matter how good these four players are. This could be Ronaldo, Messi, Lewandowski, and insert your favourite player here. If they don't run, they're no good. You have to make movement. You have to, create something of a threat for the opposition to fear so that it doesn't engage in its own tactics. And this, up until around 15 minutes to go, was working. Arsenal were putting on pressure. They had a couple of decent chances. I'm not going to say the goal was guaranteed to come when they changed it around, but a goal was definitely on the cards. Like they were on the front foot. They were putting pressure. Forster had made a couple of good saves. There was chances being made, and then with 15 minutes to go, Arsenal made a substitution that, on paper, seems prudent, taking off a defender for an attacker. It's a cup game, there's 20 minutes to go. But doing this and pushing Cedric all the way over to his natural right back, and Saka at left back, this pretty much killed the game. Because Lacazette is a player who absolutely needs the ball at his feet at all times to be able to link up with players that are running ahead of him. And Willian is not that player. Pepe is not that player. And Nketiah can be that player at times, but wasn't really today. And what was it in essence happening was Lacazette was making the runs for himself, in that he was the lad running forward, he was the lad occupying the centre backs, he was the player that needed, to be, basically he was trying to encourage Nketiah to do what he was doing himself. And instead of playing like that, Lacazette was coming deeper and playing that number 10 role he played in the Europa League. And maybe you might have seen it when I clicked onto the page, but do you know how many times Lacazette touched the ball in 20 minutes playing as Arsenal's number 10? $20 minutes. 5. How are you supposed to try and build an attack when you bring on a striker with 20 minutes to go and he touches the ball 5 times in 20 minutes? And Saka is just not a left back. Yes, you can, in theory, what you want to do is basically Saka is a poor man's Kieran Tierney. And Willian cuts inside, Peters follows him, Walcott goes there, and Saka, and you get Saka doing what Tierney does. But the difference between Tierney and Saka is that Saka is a lot more of a threat with the ball at his feet. He's a good crosser of the ball, not a great crosser of the ball. But you don't want Saka crossing the ball. You want Saka driving at defenders with the ball. You don't want Saka starting with the ball here. You want Saka starting the ball here or here. And just putting him 30 yards deeper where he should have been killed Arsenal's best chance of getting the ball to the front four. Because when he was there, he was getting involved in the attack a lot more than pretty much anyone else. And yes, I can see that he only took the ball 19 times. But he's able to make those runs behind that Pepe doesn't. He's able to make those runs, and he did make those runs that Willian doesn't. And he's just more of an attacking threat than Willian, Pepe, or even Nketiah was in this game. And putting him there pretty much nullified it. And I know that he played there before, but in games like this, you can't take your best winger. And he is now Arsenal's best winger, despite the fact that this man's on 100 grand a week and this man costs 72 million pounds. Bukayo Saka is Arsenal's best winger, and for 20 minutes, in need of a goal in a cup tie, Arsenal played him left back. And I'm just not sure if this is a long-term fix, because whilst, again, attacking wise, you want this. But as he's proved against Newcastle, I don't want Saka in there crossing the ball. I want Saka in the box on the receiving end of it. I want Saka being, another man in the box. I don't want him being the person crossing the ball. If he's going to cross it from the right, I want the left back, which is used as Gabriel. I want the left back here. If Saka is going to be there, this can't be Lacazette, or this can't be Aubameyang. If Saka's this, you need Saka directing in this part. You need him in the final third. You need him, beating defenders. He's not gonna do that in a back four. Maybe if Arsenal went to a back five, he can play as that wing back kind of, where he's got a little bit of cover here. Like Xhaka would fit in at left back, and then he can push a lot more forward, and he could be here, or at least here when Arsenal have the ball. But not in a four. And like I said at the start of the video, no Smith Rowe, no Partey at the moment. They desperately missed his third runs, his ability to, again, receive the ball and get rid of it in a flash. That just dictates the tempo a lot better than Lacazette does, than Pepe does, than Willian did. He just links up play a lot better. He's always showing for the ball. He always gives either Xhaka or Partey an out ball. He's always there to help break presses. And missing him today showed how much Arsenal need him now, but it also showed how much in the second half that if they don't have cover for him very shortly, he's going to be playing every game. And in a congested schedule as it is, it would be a nightmare to have to play one player again and again and again, as it showed today, with not having a backup left back and playing Cedric as an auxiliary left back, because Ainsley Maitland-Niles is not a threat going forward at all, and Cedric was kind of okay, even if every cross he did from here went here. Arsenal need better backups than they have right now. Yet Pepe wasn't supposed to be a backup. Willian wasn't supposed to be a backup. Lacazette wasn't supposed to be a backup. Yet they are now. And that's why if Odegaard comes in, if he takes Smith Rowe's spot for 3 months, fine, because he can also play right mid. He can play that right wing slot very, very, very comfortably, especially the way Saka plays it, cutting in on his left foot all the time. He's more than capable of playing that role. So you're basically getting, not cover, because Odegaard's really bloody good, but if 2 of those 3 played in those spots every week, I'd be happy. More than happy. And if this game should prove anything, it's the fact that Arsenal need help, and they need help fast. And it's going to be a lot longer than any of us really maybe want for this team to get fixed, because there's just too much that needs fixing in a short amount of time. Yes, Socrates is going okay, Ozil going okay. Some of the players that we know aren't good enough for this system are gone, but there's a lot more work to be done. If you did enjoy this video, please feel free to, leave a like, subscribe, comment below if you, disagreed or agree with anything. And yeah, we will talk to you next time. Cheers.